Does God, in fact, influence the decisions you make in your position as a lawmaker, as a statewide official?
Yeah, although I wouldn't compartmentalize it just in my decision making here, but really, it affects my entire life. So it's hopefully it makes me a better person. Hopefully I'm thinking more about others. I'm concerned about others. I'm willing to sacrifice. So hopefully it makes me not just a better attorney general, but also a better legislator when I was a legislator, better attorney, better father, better husband, because I'm hopefully thinking more about other people than I am myself.
Are there specific issues that have arisen when you were a lawmaker, as now the Attorney General, where you've turned to your faith for the answer?
Well, I would say there are ones that are more fundamental to our Constitution, but not necessarily always related just to my faith. They're tied in. I think that my faith, oftentimes you can see that the founders had a faith that sort of helped them craft the Constitution. And if you look at the issues that we're dealing with, whether it's First Amendment, freedom of speech, religious liberty issues, yeah, those are important rights that they viewed as inalienable rights that were not given to them by the government, but given to them by God. And so we're an unusual country in that we don't view the government as the one giving us those rights. Those rights were given to all of us, whatever our background, our social structure, our wealth, our ethnicity, we all have the same rights. And so those same rights are, in my job, that's pretty important to focus in on and make sure that we protect those rights.
What do you say to somebody who reaches a different conclusion or legal outcome based on their definition of God?
I've actually enjoyed the process, being in the legislature, being in the legal world. I enjoy the challenge. I mean, I have to work with people all the time that we don't agree necessarily on the end result, but we have to work together to find a result. And so, whether it was when I was in the House or the Senate, or whether I'm working on legal issues, even in my own office, we have to take complicated issues that people disagree on, and we have to come to a conclusion somehow, some way, for the betterment of the state of Texas. And so I've enjoyed the challenge. I don't expect most people, I don't expect anybody to agree with me all the time, including my own spouse. So, it's just the way it is, and you try to figure out, just as I do in my marriage, just as I do here, try to figure out a way to treat people with differing views with respect and dignity, and try to work out a solution that is good for Texas.
How do you balance your duties to protect the Constitution with your religious beliefs? Namely, we saw just recently with the same-sex marriage ruling.
Well, the Constitution, thankfully, the Constitution was written by people of faith. And like I said, the fundamental underpinnings of it are, I think, faith. And this idea that our rights are not granted by the government, they're granted by God. And so everyone has them. It's not me sitting here, or the governor sitting here, or the legislature sitting here and saying, well, we're going to give it to these people and not to these people. We all have them. So one of the things that I enjoy about my job is that I have the opportunity to represent all people, and whatever their faith is, they have the same rights. And so I don't have to distinguish whether someone is of a certain faith or, like I said, social background or whatever. They all deserve the same protection under the law, and that's my job.
Watching now the session from the outside, this past legislature, how would you characterize it, just your years in the legislature, and again now your position as Attorney General, as far as mentions of God and the debates, and how present faith was maybe this past session?
Well, one, it was kind of fun to watch from outside and not have to be responsible for carrying some of those bills. But every session issues of faith come up. It's not. I don't think it's unusual. Obviously, religious liberty issues were a big part of this session, or at least being talked about significantly because of what the Supreme Court was doing with marriage. So, outside forces actually kind of forced the issue, and I think those same outside forces are going to continue to force the issue, because now you've got some conflicts between these new rights that were created under the Constitution versus some of the older provisions of the Constitution. So those create some tensions, and we're going to have to figure out how to work those out so that people of faith can still be people of faith, and we can still, do what we need to do under the Constitution.
How do you mitigate that, or how do you strike that balance? As far as, again, as the Attorney General, issuing the direction to the county clerks and talking about religious freedom, but then also saying that they might face legal challenges because of what they're doing, or if they do that?
Well, it's certainly not easy, because especially when you see a new right created that creates tension with previous rights. And so what we try to do is our best to make that work together, recognizing what the Supreme Court had done, but also, even if we didn't agree with it, recognizing that we still have people of faith that have those First Amendment rights. Those have not gone away, and they should be defended, and it's our job to defend the entire Constitution.
With the one county clerk that resigned this week, I mean, that's what a lot of people have said. You know, if you're a city official, county official, and it goes against your religious beliefs, should they just step down from that post?
You know, it's disturbing if that's where our country's headed, where people of faith can't serve in government. I hope that's not the situation that we end up with. Obviously, we've seen a little of that so far, but I don't think that's a good trend if that's where we're headed, because that's certainly not the way the country was founded. And I hope that's not our current direction, at least not a current long-term direction.
You have some who, you know, look at maybe, again, the mentions of faith during the session and say, wait a second, this is government. Why is there faith so much mentioned? I mean, would you be able to operate in government without the presence of faith? Or
I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think our founders set it up that way. They came here for freedom of religion, and they came here and set up a government that would allow for that. So the fact that we're still talking about faith and people have the right to express their different opinions on religion and faith, I think that's what they wanted, and that's why people came to this country. And look, it's not that way in most countries. And you know, a lot of countries you can't say anything about your faith if it's different than whatever the ruling class or the ruling party has in place. And so it's one of the great things about our country is we have different faiths, and we found a way to work together.
When you were in the legislature and they finally got it passed this session, but you know, campus carry, open carry, went through, when we heard it debated this session, many of the lawmakers, particularly those sponsoring the bills, called it a God-given right. Do you agree with that characterization?
You know, I whether it's God-given or not, it's in our Constitution. So I would, as a representative of the government and the Attorney General of Texas, I certainly defend the Second Amendment just like I would defend the First Amendment and the Third Amendment and the Fourth Amendment. Whatever's in the Constitution, it's my job to defend. And so, yes, I would defend people's right to carry.
Attorney General, anything else to add that I didn't hit on when it comes to your faith and your job in government?
No, I think it's so easy for people to focus on one issue or another and not think about the broader context of it may be about issues, but it also is about how you treat people. And so I've always tried to bring that to my job and thinking about it's really important that whether I agree with someone or not, there's still people that deserve respect and dignity, and their opinion matters. And so, and it doesn't matter what level of government they're in, I try to listen and take that into account as a matter of faith.
In your last session, abortion was a huge focus, and HB2 passed. You were in support of that measure, correct?
That's correct.
Did your faith come into your belief there?
Well, I would say, you know, obviously the biblical principle of life and not murdering, that is an important provision of my faith. So yeah, it's important that we protect life, and everybody deserves it, whether they're unborn or, you know, 1 day old. I've always thought that everyone deserves the same protection under the law, including the unborn.
How does that apply to your views on the death penalty?
What do you mean exactly?
As far as the protection of life, or, you know, some have said, you know, conception to natural death.
Sure.
Do you agree with that, or do you believe in the capital punishment?
You know, people also need to be held responsible for their actions, and if they've committed a crime, they've taken another life, and it's been determined by a jury of their peers that they've done that, and the evidence indicates that they've committed a murder, then I'm willing to enforce that and do my job as AG to enforce that.
Okay. Your faith doesn't. I mean, as far as, you know, it's just been interesting in all these interviews to hear, you know, just the thought behind, you know, that
right.
idea.
Well,
and if you can cite your faith, you know, for protecting the unborn, and then how that might apply.
Right. There's innocent life, and then there's consequences for taking the life of another. And if society and government sets up rules that says that if you've done this certain type of crime where you've taken another one's life or many lives or whatever the rules are, and the consequences that you lose your life, then my job as AG is to enforce that, and I'm here to do that.
Anything else to add?
I think I'm good.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.